Welcome to my Creative Corner 3, a podcast about quilting, crafting, creativity, with a dash of garden, chatting about current interests and life in my northern town. You can find show notes at mycreativecorner3.com. You can also find all of my social media, how to purchase a virtual cup of coffee, and all events on the website. Please feel free to stop by and leave a comment. I really appreciate everyone who listens. Thanks for stopping by. Welcome to the podcast. Hello, everyone. It is the 7th month, 12th day in the year of our Lord 2024. Isn't that fun? It sounds like we're at a very formal event, like a graduation or something. I just thought we'd start with what's going on around the house. Well, the gardening's doing its own thing. I told you I'm a 6 to 8 week gardener. It's looking fabulous. So as I observe it every day, take a few pictures, I have really been focused during the heat of the summer, which is now probably through, September, that this house has been being worked on in the decluttering and tidying up areas. I do follow the Fly Lady, flylady.net online if you're interested in looking it up, which really the gist of it is she has a plan for cleaning, but it's too overwhelming for me, to be honest, because she makes these exhaustive lists. I just have a routine that's about 15, 20 minutes every day, trying to make sure the kitchen is cleaned up at the beginning of the day and tidying up things as I go. And then, about once a month or so, I will go through an area that is what she calls a hot spot, something that's really a hot mess that needs to be cleaned up. But the biggest thing is trying to do slow motion decluttering. Slow motion meaning I am not pulling everything out of a closet, aka Marie Kondo style, and then going, does this spark joy? I've tried that a couple of times and no, does not work for me. And I like the slob comes clean method, which is doing a little bit at a time, one bag at a time. And so my goal is one garbage bag a week, because most of the things that I'm decluttering are things that are unwanted, broken, outdated, unusable. If I do find things that could be recycled, I recycle it or take it to the Goodwill. But honestly, a lot of this stuff is quite beyond use. It's not even cool. It's not even so old it's cool. It's just used up garbage. So that's been my goal. And I'm going to be honest, I started the whole process like a reset button in my mind in January. And I feel like it's really taking shape. A couple times a year, I try to do a long weekend where I'm really focused on one area and trying to really work on it as much as I have the ability to in both body and mind, because we're starting to get down to the nitty-gritty stuff where it's really hard to say, do I really want to part with this or not? Like pieces of furniture, I have a few pieces picked out, but then there's a couple that I'm not so sure about. Books that I like, so I'm going to keep those for now. If we do in the future move to a very small age-in-place type of home for retirement, then I will do another round. But really what I'm doing now is something that future me will thank me for, because, it doesn't get any easier every year that goes by. And who knows? There's a lot of uncertainty in this world. And even with our jobs, which have been jobs for 30 years that have been rock solid, things are kind of weird in both my husband's job and my job. I can't really talk about it publicly, but it has to do with the financing and money in the businesses. And there's always a need for the types of work we do, but it's just the issue of how the businesses are running themselves and being in the red, being in the black, how much people are making and wanting to restructure somehow. Maybe, we don't know. There's a lot of that talk going around. So my mind is prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Now, that's not the best mantra to live by, but that's what I do. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to keep going on my plan, because then if I have to suddenly move, or suddenly I find myself retired for many reasons, maybe not by choice, I'll be ready. So this is just one step in the process. So where am I at? Yeah, the closets are happening a little at a time. I've really gone through the front porch, which has been a storage area. The front porch is enclosed on a 100-year-old home, and it doesn't really have a servable purpose because it's either too hot or too cold. And so I kind of store like my extra dishes out there, quilts that need to be bound, some of my books, and it's much neater and it doesn't look like a trash heap, and there's organization to it. It's not designed to go out there and sit and read a book. I've tried it. It just doesn't work. It's too uncomfortable. And then I went through my sewing room again. Now I'm doing it a little bit at a time as I go, but I'm able to get rid of like one bag a week of stuff, like going through all of the notions I have. I found a bunch of notions I will never use. I bought the thread, or the thread was given to me. It's old and rotten. I didn't like it. My machine didn't like it. Goodbye. Why keep things that are not going to work for me? I also went through, found like more fabric that were like small pieces that was never going to be used. They went goodbye. And just kind of slowly going through things. Oh, Stitch Witchery, that was too old. I tried using it. Didn't glue. Goodbye. Next thing I knew, I had a whole bag full. So just going to keep on working this system to get my house. And number one, it'll be more breathing space in it because it's a small house with a fair amount, a lot of stuff. And it will also keep this idea that I'm investing in the here and now so that future me will be happy that I did it, including, other things too for self-care, like trying to move some more. Not necessarily a formal hardcore exercise program, but a little bit of exercise, a little bit of stretching, a little bit of rowing, a little bit of walking, mixing it up, not being too rigid in a lot of these self-imposed rules so that there's a little bit of flexibility. So I have been doing those things and found myself feeling more inspired after I finished Petite 4, did a lot of knitting, and I just went through a dry spell. You do that periodically, normally, and sometimes after you finish a really big project, you need a little bit of time to kind of go, well, what direction do I want to go in? Where do I want to go with my quilting and crafting right now? So I didn't do any quilting really much for a couple months, trying to keep up with some of the door banner projects. But then I saw Spooky and Sweet being advertised as a free Halloween quilt along that came out in June. So I made Spooky and Sweet. It's all revealed now. It was a mystery quilt, but it's two ghosts dressed up to go trick-or-treating with some very cool stars. Very simple wall hanging or door banner sized quilt. You could even make it into a table runner. There were two options for setting. I quilted the whole thing, and then after auditioning a couple of binding fabrics, I chose black. So I need to cut the binding and sew it on. So this is the part where I get bogged down. Yep, I sure enough do. So I did put the binding on my Petite 4 blue and white quilt that was paper pieced, a free pattern using the pre-printed foundation paper piecing pads that Fat Quarter Shop had. And then I decided that over the 4th of July week, I had a lot of time off and we weren't going anywhere. So I started doing the family-sized potato chip quilt from So Yeah, WOWYEAH. So yeah, it's a Las Vegas quilt shop with a large YouTube channel and quite a big store. I've bought a few things from them. Customer service was great. The quality is all quilt shop stuff. Very, very nice. And they had this free pattern using a pre-cut only they make, which is called Vegas strips. I think that's hilarious. So it's really a quilt in a day project. And I thought, oh, baloney. I have heard Eleanor Burns preach quilt in a day now for years. There is no way you can make an entire quilt in a day. Well, you can with this one because all it is the mini potato chip quilt block made to be a scrap buster. This is a stash buster. You have rectangles that are 6.5 inches wide by 12.5 inches long. There are 60 of them for this throw size quilt. And you sew the 60 strips in an arrangement that pleases your eye, kind of log cabin style. And oh my gosh, it is so cute. And I did bust a lot of fabric. And so I have a massive stash. My friend who passed away and I inherited her stash, she was going to do a black and white quilt, and I'm going to do that with this family-sized potato chip quilt. I think what I did the first time was trying to pick a scrappy look with a moderately controlled color palette. And so what I'm doing now is black and white, and the very center is going to be bubblegum pink if I can find it in my stash. Otherwise, it's going to be a really bright color. Now, wouldn't it be nice? It's either bubblegum pink or lime. That's my thought. I got to go through the stash for the contrast color in the center. So I made that. I am here to tell you, you can do it in one day. I did not. I did it over a period of a couple days. I sewed the fabric together and made the quilt all in a couple of hours on the 4th of July. But I did spend another hour on another day cutting all 60 of the pieces. And then I spent another hour or so in between cutting it and sewing it, arranging it, the first center medallion on my design board just to see what it would look like. And I did have to take down a quilt off the design board, which we'll talk about in a minute. So I did it in probably between 5.5 and 6 hours that I sewed. Pressed it, took a picture, all within 6 hours. It's great. It's a perfect, I want to say, picnic quilt. If anyone actually throws a quilt on the ground for a picnic, I know Jenny Doan calls picnic quilts for using for picnics. Okay. I think it would be great for a young person's quilt, a donation quilt, a graduation quilt, because it's simple, and maybe for people who are muggles who don't get the whole thing about quilting, it's quick, it's easy, and looks complicated, more complicated than it is. So it'll be super fun to long arm because you can do a whole lot of different things in those very large pieces and maybe do a bit of a sampler of stitches and practice, or edge to edge would look great too. I'm going to try doing mostly edge to edge, but there's going to be maybe a couple of rounds in the quilt where I'm going to change up the stitches and see what it looks like at the end. That's the beauty. These are great utility quilts and practice quilts. So what did I take off the wall? Well, about a decade or so ago, I got these really cute, kind of Art Nouveau-ish looking fabrics. And I made 9 patches with them, and I have enough for a wall hanging size quilt. And I needed to figure out how to set them. I put them away because they were kind of met with a lukewarm meh, because they're kind of a low volume, lime greenish and pink, same color palette fabrics. There's not a lot of contrast in it. And then I put some really bright, hot pinks and limes and greens on a sashing around frame. I call it a frame around that 9 patch. And then I got stuck on what to do for the sashing and cornerstones. And I went to the quilt shop just to kind of look around to see if they had any inspiration. I only live 4 houses away, not blocks, houses away from the quilt shop. I try not to go in there too much or I would be broke. Let's just say that. However, they had some Sherry and Chelsea's strawberry lemonade. Now, I haven't ordered it because I didn't know. I have it on reserve at Fat Quarter Shop for the layer cake, but I didn't know which individual color I might like. And lo and behold, when I look at it, the flowers are the exact same. I'm wondering if this is an early Chelsea line that I picked and matched it with kind of an Art Nouveau-ish looking thing. The flowers are exactly the same. Nonetheless, I now picked out fabric for yardage. I went home, calculated the yardage, and that entire strawberry lemonade line is being reprinted by Moda because it was so popular. It is, I can't say, it's so adorable. I am in love with it. So I'm glad that the layer cake is coming, and I'm going to pick a couple different pieces, I think, for yardage. I think I'm going to do, I have a lime sashing that I think will look great, but I'm going to use some of the layer cake for the cornerstones and mix that all up. That will be done when Moda prints the fabric. I've been waiting for years to find the right fabric to use for it, and I feel like, I don't know what made me think to get that out, but I decided, you know what, these are too nice to just languish for 10 more years in the orphan bin as epic failures, because I don't think they are epic failures. They're just not what everybody's cup of tea. And low volume, I have mixed feelings on it. So once the low volume centers were set off with colors and they're going to be tied together with a sashing and cornerstones that will kind of bring the contrast to the quilt, I think it's really going to be more successful and something that I will like. So that is put on hold for now. Well, then Kimberly Jolly did a live because I was like, I am not doing any more quilt-alongs until the fall because I was thinking I'm getting really behind on my door banner thing. No, I'm not behind. I'm actually quite on time for it. But what the issue is it's going out of order, which jumbled my brain a little bit. And I was kind of stuck on where I wanted to go. And then she revealed the first clue for the Star of Wonder mystery quilt. They're doing it in a Christmas colorway, but she said it definitely does not need to be Christmas, but this is their free Christmas quilt. That's another, I think, 48-inch square quilt, perfect for the door banner on my oversized door at work. I decided this would be a good quilt to use part of that Lori Holt prairie stash that I have. And it's a medallion quilt that was revealed in the first week. And the large center is going to be the focal point. So I used reds and pinks with a little bit of teal. And it's very successful. I like that block a lot. It's hard to describe what it is. But it's a really nice oversized block, which made it easier to sew into the quadrants that you have to use to put it together. And then the next week was super simple. It was kind of a log cabin, quarter square log cabins with a tiny 4-patch in the center. I think they're going to be the corners of the quilt. And then there's going to be more. She's given a few sneaky peeks for the next week, which looks like another some kind of star, which are my absolute favorites. So I'm really excited. This is a 4-week quilt along, which I like because they're short term and the blocks are not crazy. And you have a cute quilt when you're done. So the Star of Wonder, and I'm using my Lori Holt stash. I decided, what am I hanging on to it for? And it was a 10 fat quarter quilt with a little, like a couple yards of background fabric is what the fabric requirement said. Now I'm going to let you know, I did not understand week one's colorway quilt and the cutting directions for the patches. The dimensions are right, but it was not colored the way I would do it. And there's, I think, a little error in what they say you should do for coloration. So be careful in that one if you choose to do it. I would not cut out the entire block because you might get frustrated to find out they reverse some of the colors in the cutting directions. But overall, the fabrics put out by the company are impeccable. But, on free patterns, every once in a while, there's a little bit of a goof, and you just have to have a heads up. I'm also starting to do more long arming. I feel like I'm well enough to do that. I'm strong enough. My back and legs have not been hurting as much. But then this week I got a little bit of a vertigo spell with an ear infection, so it kind of slowed down a little bit for a few days. But I was able to finish a quilt that my mom pieced the quilt top, and it's a disappearing 9 patch made out of black and white fabrics with a black and white snowball with a bubblegum pink fuchsia border. See where I got the black and white and pink combo. And part of the black and white fabric she had was a tulip pink that had flashes of lime green in it. And it is an eye-catching quilt. I did do a swirl pattern on it, and it's kind of reminiscent of one of the early ones I learned from Angela Walters, and I really, really like how it turned out, so I can't wait to give it to her. She's seen pictures and said that she really liked it, so I'm very excited. So that's about the extent of the long arming and quilting that I've been up to. The thing I have put up is the shawl I've been doing. So I looked it up, and the name of it is a Wrap Me Up Sweater Scarf by Knititude. She has a Ravelry shop and linked through her Instagram account. But it's so warm. I'm almost done. I'm getting close to knitting the second sleeve on this wrap. And I ordered too much yarn, but I would not have had enough of the yarn that I had. So it's great. I'm going to have some extra very nice DK weight yarn to knit another pink. It's a pink and white, kind of freckle speckled quilt yarn. So I put it up because it's just too hot. When it's getting into the 80s and 90s occasionally, and that's too much. So what did I pick up instead? Well, I got on a big binge during the time I was just kind of not feeling like quilting a lot. And I was just messing around with, knitting and then, looking at all of my UFOs. And I started watching all of Lori Holt's videos because I really am a huge fan of Lori Holt. And I just admire her style, her commitment to her signature style and color palettes. And she recently moved. And in the move, we got to see a whole lot of things, but she started a series. Now, remember 2 years ago, she did the Granny Square Along, and it was a free Granny Square cross-stitch bookmark, which I made it into a bookmark, a free tutorial on how to use Granny Squares, but I wasn't able to. I needed a refresher on crochet, and I went and tried it with pearl cotton, which was okay to work with, but it's not the best to crochet with, I'm going to be honest. But I did several little tiny pillows like she did and display them in like a dough bowl. And this year, and there was the Great Granny Square quilt, which is the next quilt I'm putting on the frame. I got it done. And this year, she's doing circles. So a quilt along she did the spring and summer, which I've not done, is her mercantile or mercantile, whatever you say, what part of the country. We call it mercantile. Mercantile quilt is circular. So you piece the block together, then you cut it out in a circle, and you applique it over an oversized 4-patch. Absolutely gorgeous, but totally not what I would do. But I'm like, I do like that Granny Circle, or she calls them Squirkles, which is kind of a funny name. But she does lovely videos. And what was super funny, by coincidence, is I told my daughter, I really want to learn how to crochet. And she goes, oh my gosh, I've seen so many crochet patterns. And my daughter knits, and she knits like me because I taught her how to knit in a kind of backwards way for left-handed people, but she's right-handed. So she decided serendipitously at the same time we were going to learn how to crochet granny squares, and I was doing the granny circles made into a square. And so we were sending, little videos and pictures back and forth, what video tutorials you're using. I sent her Lori Holt's granny squares. She was really struggling with crocheting. She's tried it before and it didn't work, but this time, after a few days of practicing, she mastered it. And so it was really, really great to see that she's found something else, because she saw that the blanket done. Do you guys remember Mary Maxim? So Mary Maxim is a Port Huron, Michigan based craft store, and they used to, back in the day, and they still do, I guess, have a massive catalog business. And there's a kit in there that has been around for a couple years, but it is for advanced crocheters. And so she wants to eventually learn how to crochet enough to do that particular kit. Now let me find its name. So they have two kits that are just gorgeous, and they're made out of Mary Maxim Mellow Spun DK. And they come in several colorways, but one that I believe she saw on TikTok recently, which I've seen over the years, it's currently on sale, by the way. It's called Persian Tiles. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. It's very large, flower-shaped crochet made into hexagons and squares that are interlocked. The other one that's gorgeous and very similar is called Marrakesh. And I have not been super successful myself in making Afghans, we used to call them, or blankets. I did one right after I was ill, having thyroid cancer 15 years ago, and it's strawberry and chocolate. I found it the other day, and it needs to be blocked, and it's really beautiful, but it's really hard for me to make. This particular quilt was multiple squares, granny squares, that were all different sizes, and jigsaw them together, and it was based on a 1970s pattern, and there was a big crochet along going around during that time period, and it's a gorgeous blanket, but man, it was hard, and it harbors some of difficult years of my life. Isn't that funny how you make something so beautiful that it really is beautiful during a really difficult time in my life, but I just need to get over it and shake it off and get that thing finished, block it, spruce it up, and display it, maybe use it, but it's really my thing. It's colors that would work really well in this house. That's why I made it. So anyway, she wants to do that very ambitious Marrakesh blanket, and she'll do it. She's done all kinds of knitted blankets and knitted projects, not garments, because she's like me, they don't fit and then you get frustrated. I do the same with sewing garments too, but it was super fun. We were able to share this back and forth. Then the girls, based on me planting a little sewing bug in their brains, and took them a sewing machine last year, and taught them how to do a little bit of sewing. Maybe 18 months ago, I took the machine. So they've had 2 lessons from me on straight stitching a coaster, and we made journal covers. Well, they wanted to sew something else this summer, and I'm not going down there on a planned vacation this summer. They wanted to make stuffed animals and teddy bears. And my daughter was like, I would have to help you with that. And I don't sew like Grandma does. And that is probably more advanced than what you're ready for. The twins are going to be 11. They are 11, going to be 12, I think. So they're just starting out. And the little girl has, she's 7. She does a couple seams, and then, you have to finish it because she's not quite ready to finish a project. So they decided on compromising on making something that my daughter found online that's super easy to do, and it's a tote bag, a basic book bag, and you don't even have to sew tubes for the straps. You just use super wide and heavy duty ribbon, like 4-inch wide ribbon, and they all did it. They interfaced the front. They don't use a rotary cutter because the girls are too young and my daughter doesn't like rotary cutters, so they hand cut everything out. It's not 100% perfect because that's how handmade is, right? And they got to the point where you had to assemble the bag, and my daughter was like, the pattern isn't making any sense, because then it says sew the top. And we all started laughing because I did the exact same thing, and it didn't, like, how do you get the straps, and how do you, yeah. Anyway, I told her it's you got to put the right sides together, but wrong sides out. If you ever made a tote bag, you know what I'm talking about. It's that tricky thing. Sew the top means sew the circle with the straps inside your right sides together inside the bag, and then you turn the entire thing around. So we were on a video chat for a while the girls were taking a break, and they spent all day, the three of them, probably 6, 7, 8 hours, and they made their bags, and they went to the library for the library summer reading program, proudly displaying their new book bags. And my daughter made one too. And it was so fun to see that they went to the store, and my daughter gasped at the price of Joann fabric, but they found some lovely fabrics on sale for $4 a yard. Each child picked, and my daughter picked, fabric that was so them. And it was great to see their personalities. They were very excited. I asked the girls if they had fun making it, and they go, it was so much fun. So even though I'm not there, they live 16 hours away, it was great to share the moment of making a tote bag. And yay, grandkids, they did it. So now I'm going to start sending them other types of bags, because I told my daughter, once they get really good at sewing bags, then you can start doing things like maybe add a zipper. Even I don't do a zipper very well. Or you can do pouches. So I thought the rice bag I made not too long ago is a great project, because it's something you could do with interfacing, and you just cut squares out. And if you had a template, it would make it easier. And there's no big straps. You just do 8 little loops on the top, 2 on each side of this box. You make a box with no lid, and then you run a rope through it as a drawstring, kind of like macrame cord. Super easy, and it would be a great little project bag, or carry treasures in it, or find rocks or something. I'm putting my EPP hexagons in there right now for storage to keep them clean. So how fun. Great time had by all, including Grandma the most. So they made their project bags, book bags, I mean. Summer seems to be the time where I pick back up hand stitch stuff, so I decided I needed to finish Stitch Card N by Lori Holt. I had 2 of the little framed motifs done. They're very small, probably 3 inches, and there's 4 motifs per stitch card pack. And I was gifted Stitch Card N, which has a gnome, a flower in a pot, and I'm working on the snail right now. I've got the frame done, and the snail is almost done. And moving to my favorite for last, a frame with the mushroom in it. And I thought it would be super cute to mount this in a little frame, or some sort of a display, whether it's a flat lay or something. But I have been buying frames, Goodwill, and on sale, and picking things up over the last year for cross-stitch finishes. I have quite a few of them. And then I found out that Hobby Lobby has not as nice as fat quarter shops, but they do have sticky boards, which makes finishing a little bit easier. I also recently bought more tart tins so I can make more of these little tiny seasonal motifs to display in the tier tray that I have on my dining room table. And the tier tray is like what I do for seasonal displays. Do you remember last year I did the fall themed tart tins, and they've done the Halloween one that I talked about last time that I'm absolutely in love with. And they made a Valentine one and a Christmas one. So I thought I would love to buy. I just love these ornament tins for these fall things. And they're a quick, easy finish. Now, to do it easier, last time I forgot to order the sticky circles, and I cut out circles on my Cricut, which worked just fine. But, having the sticky circles, you can just stick batting on the top, wrap your little cross stitch around it, lash it down on the back, and then hot glue it into your tart tin, and magic happens. So I'm really one of these things about cross stitch is either I'm hot or I'm not. And it's the same with knitting and crocheting. I'm hot or I'm not. I'm really into it. I will do all of the cross stitch, all of the crochet, all the knitting until these are, not all instant gratification projects. And then when the energy for it leaves, poof, I'm cold again. So I am not a crafter except for quilting, maybe the most, where I'm just ate up and passionate about it, where I do it all the time. I'm hot or I'm not. That's probably... I think that's the name of this podcast. So right now, cross stitch is hot, crochet is hot, hexagons are not, and knitting is not, because it's a warm summer. And I keep thinking I really should learn how to knit socks. And then I look at the patterns and say, not yet. I know my aunt makes a whole bunch, and she was kind to send me even more socks and slipper socks, type of anklet like. That's what they're perfect. And then I got some of these shoes for the house that my husband bought, and he didn't like them, but they fit me. They are the barefoot shoes, and I thought, wouldn't they be great as house shoes to wear for crafting? So if I drop a rotary cutting blade, which I have recently, I will have protection on my feet. And if I wanted, I could wear them out into the gym. I wouldn't wear them outside, save them for wearing them in our little garage gym. Because you need a shoe, but I don't work out well with a lot of tennis shoes and stuff. My balance is not good enough. I feel like I'm going to fall when I wear them. So I work out barefoot most of the time, or with old Birkenstock clogs. I have Birks strapped into the rowing machine, so I just slide my feet in and out. But I do the hand weights and some of the weight things barefoot. Weird, but it's a trend. It's a trend. I'm not the one who started it. It's just my preference. And I thought I would end with just kind of the little personal life things about me getting out and meeting people as being one of my goals for the last year or so, because I've realized I have become a semi-hermit, which I do like. But at the same time, I have lost my little face-to-face in real life, shall we call it, circle of friends, because they're all retired and they meet when I work. And I have a lot of friends who have retired, and they're hard to connect with. Still keep in touch, still love them dearly, but, I need to branch out. I need to make friends my age-ish. I need to branch out amongst the people in my circle, which I have been doing. And I've been reconnecting with some of the friends I've had for a long time with lunch and coffee. I went to the Quilt Guild meeting in July. And now remember, I went 15 years ago and a little bit longer ago than that. And I was a member, but it was filled with a lot of people who were, let's just say it, the quilt police. They were the quilt police, and everything had to be done in a certain aesthetic, which is not me, and, thimbleberries and that kind of stuff. And it's just not me. And there was just no room for a lot of creativity. There was a lot of stuffiness. Well, I'd heard our local quilt guild died during the pandemic, that nobody went and everybody moved on and no one was attending. It was not true. So in June, I got a bug about, you know what, I just need to find my quilting people. And since the circle of friends that I had in their quilt meeting, which was a spinoff from this quilt group 25 years ago, or longer, they just made me think there's a Facebook group, because I've seen it pop up occasionally, because one of my friends is in the group, but she doesn't attend the meetings. And it was the local quilt guild. And I saw a couple of things over the last year posted, and there was like 3 or 4 people. And yes, in fact, when I went to the group, it had dwindled down to only a half a dozen people, and 4 of them would come to the meetings. Now it's up to 15 and maybe closer to 20 people belong. And they're doing a fun challenge. There are people who are my age. There are people who are a little bit older. And there are a couple of people younger. So I'm not the youngest. And I am, on the backside of my 50s. So it's great to see people of all age groups. They're extremely open. They're extremely friendly and encouraging, at least on that first meeting, but they seem to genuinely be that way. They have a couple retreats where maybe a half dozen people will go at a time. They've got the challenges, they have a free block of the month. So I'm excited. They seem very nice, and they start at 3, which is for the sewing part, and the meeting's at 6. But if I leave work, if I can get out at 4:30, that's plenty of time to sit and chat with people. I took, a hand sewing project because, taking your sewing machine and all that for just an hour is sometimes kind of a pain. And I've got plenty of handwork things to do. But a lot of them will go there at 3 o'clock and they will sew the actual block of the month mystery that they're working on or whatever. So it was great to sit and chat, meet people. I knew a couple of the people through the quilting in the quilt shop, but, not know them enough or friends. But overall, it was a great time, and I'm going to go to their picnic, which is kind of a nightmare for me because it's potluck and it includes being on a beach. We have a little lake here, but they're not doing any boating because, I get seasick. So it'll be fun. Take a little bit, something from the deli, chat with people and get to know people. And then I will take my quilt, fat quarters in a mystery exchange for Christmas. So I had 6 to 8 fat quarters prepared, but I misunderstood the challenge reading it on the private Facebook group. What I really found out is you are picking 6 to 8 fat quarters that somebody else is going to use to make a quilt to give back to you. And I'm like, oh. So you really want to pick something that's kind of cohesive. And I had some random things because that was kind of the thought that I was like, okay, maybe that's, going to be like the challenge, make something with some of these blocks. No. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the quilt shop because I've looked at fat quarter bundles, but I didn't see any that I really liked or wanted to spend the money on. And I can pick 6 custom ones at the fat quarter bundles and things at the quilt shop and not have to pay shipping and handling. And then I'll get something that I really like the colors of and then see what somebody does to give them back to me. So I'm clear on that. I am definitely going to participate in that. So that's the end, and I wanted to say thank you for everybody who has done the family size potato chip quilt with me on the Facebook group, which is my Creative Corner 3. Thanks to everybody who has been faithful in purchasing a cup of coffee, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee via Ko-fi. I have not been making too many YouTube videos, except this podcast can be found on YouTube with just a picture or some sort of auto-generated thing from YouTube on the podcast. It's primarily an audio, not a visual production. So thanks, everybody. You can read Saturday Morning Coffee, which is my musings for the week, on the blog, which is my creativecorner3.com. And I want to give a huge shout out to all of the people, not by name, of course, because I don't necessarily know who you are, but thank you for using my Fat Quarter Shop affiliate link. It's been a great gift to me that I was able to purchase the sticky circles, the tart tins, background fabric, and batting, all with your affiliate shop purchases. And I am just thrilled. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a most wonderful week, and craft on.